Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order? The first thing, since the last time we were on air here, of course, is the trade, the Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford trade that came through the line last week. Now, obviously, this won't go official until March the 17th, when the new season begins. But this is the deal. The Detroit Lions will trade Matthew Stafford to the LA Rams for Jared Goff, a 20 or a third round pick in this draft, a first round pick in the 2022 draft, and a first round pick in the 2023 draft. So, there's been a lot of reaction on both sides of this trade, and honestly, one of the first things, Sean, that I want to touch on, because there's a lot I think to kind of unpack when it comes to this trade. I'm amazed at the number of people that underestimate how good Matthew Stafford actually is.
Yeah, I mean, I would completely agree. I think for a large portion of his career, his numbers were maybe a touch overinflated with Calvin Johnson, but there's no shortage of quarterbacks who have numbers inflated for the same reason. I don't know. I'm not going to say Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be competitive, but Devontae Adams helps. Matt Ryan, who I'd put in a very similar boat as Matt Stafford, probably even less talent-wise, obviously inflated whenever Julio Jones is on the field. He can't even win when Julio doesn't play. And, you have some of these other ones. Obviously, our friend Tom Brady, arguably the greatest of all time, the one season with Randy Moss. People do give him a lot of accolades for setting a lot of records that year. Randy Moss helps a lot. So I don't know. I'm not saying that Matt Stafford needed him, and obviously he didn't. He's been putting up ridiculous numbers anyway, with the likes of a one-legged Kenny Golladay and a whatever's left of Marvin Jones, if there ever was anything. He seems to, whatever weapons are on the field, he finds. I mean, he spreads the ball around well, uses his tight ends when he needs to, still loves using a running back out of the backfield if that's what the coach asks. I feel like the number of coaches that have turned through there, for him to continue to put up numbers under all of them is pretty impressive. And you're right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of reaction that feel like the Rams kind of broke even and lost draft picks instead of a massive upgrade at the QB position. And I think it's baffling, on Twitter and everywhere else, reading how poor people think he actually is.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I look at it from this angle, in the fact that if you look at this Rams team, I think the Rams are, they're really at a point where I think they're ready to win now. I mean, they're not far removed from when they were in the Super Bowl. And, they have a defense that can win. They have an offense that can win. They have good receivers. They have a pretty darn good offensive line. And to me, the biggest missing piece was a quarterback. And I'm not just here just to slight Jared Goff, but I don't think he has a deep ball ability. I don't think he has a great arm to spread the field, where with the receivers that they have, you should be able to do that. And Matthew Stafford has proved time and time again that, hurt or not, the guy is going to spread the field. The guy's going to get the ball downfield. And again, I don't think you have to be tremendous to potentially make a run with the rest of the team that LA has. And like, that's what people are forgetting, is like everybody wants to go to a lack of playoff wins, a lack of playoff appearances for Matthew Stafford. But you have to look at an organization in Detroit that has been bad for a long time, has been just unbelievably mismanaged for how many, not just years,
Decades. Yeah.
Decades, this team. And also, I mean, let's not forget, you had two absolute first ballot Hall of Fame players in Barry Sanders and Megatron that retired in their prime. You can't tell me that part of that isn't attributed to the way that organization is run. So, for Matt Stafford, I think the fact that Stafford got that team to playoffs and did he have a playoff win? I don't have it pulled up, but like the fact that he even got there to me is shows you how good of a quarterback the guy actually is.
Yeah. I mean, you were pretty much playing in the basement of the league for a good portion of your career. And I mean, even with Calvin Johnson, I mean, one of the reasons Calvin hung it up was because of that. Like you said, it was partially to do with how poor that organization was. We do have Scott. Apparently, I'm going to assume he checked in, showed us 0 playoff wins.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. He's talking
about just the Lions in general.
I knew it was 1, if any.
Yeah, because I thought maybe they had cracked in, with a Calvin Johnson one year. But they're always in 0-3 in the playoffs, according to Ryan there, 0-3. So I'll take these guys' word for it. I could start Googling, but I'm talking now. So, but I see Scott there. We have it up on the video feed pointing out Matt Millen, worst GM that ever lived. Yeah. I don't know about worst.
He's up,
but he's on. If there's a hand that holds the bottom, he's in that hand. It was a train wreck situation, and unfortunately for that city, who remains incredibly loyal. We alluded, when we talked about the Browns resurgence a few weeks ago, we mentioned how loyal the city of Cleveland's been to that franchise and like how much they love it. The city of Detroit's right there with them. Do I think they deserve a Thanksgiving game every year? Maybe.
Oh, and it's the only time they're going to get a national audience. Just let them.
That's true. They could just have it. Just move it around in the day.
Yeah,
someone else that noon game.
They're the noon game. You're either eating or you're making the food, so you're usually not sitting down and watching it anyway.
But what the trade does for me is Scott alluded to it in one of his comments earlier. When you look at the NFC West, it really, and I don't think the Rams were in any question not going to challenge for the NFC West anyway. But it instantly shakes up kind of power rankings out there. And he pointed out the quarterbacks between Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray, and as of now, Jimmy G. I think that could change with.
Yeah, I say right now the Niners have the worst quarterback in that division.
Yeah, right? and you talk about from that quarterback list, I think it's glaringly obvious who the worst of the 4 is. And I think when you look at the results of this season, injuries or not, and you look at, we're going to assume, I think, that Seattle's going to bounce back from whatever was ailing everyone this year. Maybe they don't, but I think you're at a point where we've had, we're 1 year removed from the 49ers being in the Super Bowl, and they had won one, within the last 10 years or so. I think you're back to a point where it looks like they're going to get pushed to the bottom. I know they have a great defense and, have a good offensive coordinator. The coach seems to have the team. Could they win games? Sure. But I think when you look at them on paper this early, which is way too early to make any calls, I don't know. I think the Rams sit right on top. I don't really see, when you add a QB that can play competitively and is going to give you 110%, which is way better than the 100% you're going to get out of Jared Goff. I think it instantly makes that team a strong playoff contender and a chance to win now. And obviously Seattle and Russell Wilson, you can't count out. We all know that Kyler Murray's frustrated with the up and down play in Arizona. But, that is what it is too. If he can stay healthy, that's a big if. I think I have the 49ers currently in my head anyway, penciled in at 4 out of 4. So I don't know. It should be an interesting way to shake it up. I think Matt's going to like playing for McVay. I think, kind of a chance to disguise some things, see some different looks than he's seen before, and kind of get a chance to maybe do a little late career resurgence. I hope he at least gets to the playoff. I'd like to see him succeed and kind of, push some of those critics off of his back there.
Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order? See, Scott here asks, do you think there was tampering with McVay and Stafford and Cabo, or weird coincidence? I'm not even sure what that's referring to.
Frankly, I don't care. I'm sure if there is, they're going to find it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Generally, if it's a face-to-face meeting, it's a real hard one to prove. It's just, it's not like they booked the same flight. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I mean, I think here's the thing. I think both teams won.
Popular vacay spot there.
Whenever there's a trade, everybody talks about who won the trade, who lost the trade. I think both teams won this trade for different reasons. The Detroit Lions got a quarterback that is good enough to be a starter. Obviously, I mean, he took a team to a Super Bowl. He was the quarterback of a team that went to a Super Bowl. You can argue whether or not he took them or not. And if nothing else, he's going to be a transitional quarterback to fill that starting role. And they also now have a more stock and draft picks, and including 2 first-round picks. Now, if things pan out for the Rams, these are going to be late-round first-round picks. I would assume they are. However, you're probably going to have a low first-round pick. You're going to have a later first-round pick. But there's still 2 first-round draft picks in the upcoming seasons and a third-round pick this year.
A lot of talent taken in the last half of a first round.
So there's a lot of, there's a lot to build on with Detroit, because let's be honest, that's what they're doing. New coach, new leadership.
All that team is a foundation and a blank slate.
Exactly. So,
perfect.
You have another opportunity to try and rebuild. And for the Rams, you have a quarterback that definitely puts you in more of a position here. Ryan says, if that is any other quarterback, they'd be thrashed for going 0-3. Guy is trash.
And that's a load of garbage.
Yeah.
This is the guy that, first of all, to come at me or us saying that I would not drag him through the trash if he was awful. Baker Mayfield now has a playoff win and was just as ineffective as Matt Stafford as far as a playoff perspective goes. And I've done nothing but drag his face through the mud for the last 2 years I've been doing this podcast. And Baker Mayfield's just as likable off the field as Matt Stafford, probably more.
I would say I would say absolutely more.
Stafford's not that funny. He doesn't have a great media presence. He's literally probably one of the most boring off the field quarterbacks that I try to sell people on.
Real bitch.
But the guy's tough as nails, plays through all the injury. He does everything he can do to be out there on the field, and basically just goes out there and slings laser beams across the field because, let's face it, they've never been in positions in games to have a running game for 4 quarters. So he's just getting chased around the field by the fourth quarter because they're throwing it every down.
Well,
and it's been impressive to watch. I love watching his highlights, and I'm going to say it.
When it comes down to playoff record, again,
there's not many of them, but I love watching them.
But you got to look at this situation. If Aaron Rodgers with the teams he's had, or if Drew Brees with the Saints teams that he had, or what have you. I mean, if those guys had gone 0-3 in the playoffs and never made it back the other 9 seasons they were quarterback, then they'd be getting drug. Absolutely. Because if you have a talented team and a well-run organization and you can only get to the playoffs 3 times in 12 seasons and never win a playoff game, then you probably as quarterback should be run through the mud a little bit. But when you look at that organization, there's very few. I would put them in the 5 worst run organizations in the NFL. They're probably taking number 1 most seasons. You're looking at a guy that
I'd say top 3 probably. And I mean, the only team in recent history would be the Jets. Would be obviously one of the top 3 and rotate in and out
for a while, but they're finally
for a while. I mean, I would argue. I mean, I know they're a middle of the road team, but I would say maybe the Bengals are on that list only because they just can't. They're just content with mediocrity. I mean, Marvin Lewis was the coach of a sub 500 team for a decade and a half. I mean, how does a coach hold that job that long? And we talked about Pip Rivers last week, hanging up the shoes. He got out of a pretty toxic situation in California with the Chargers. I think they're a pretty poorly run, just in general, franchise that just Texans somehow winds up with enough talent to be. Oh, Texans, absolutely. I didn't even think of Houston. Good Lord, what a dumpster fire it is down there.
But I pulled up Stafford's stats, and I mean the guy averages. Now this is taken into account 1 season where he started 3 games without injury, and another season where he only started half the season without injury. And even with those seasons, he's averaged almost 4,000 passing yards a year.
Yep.
Now, granted, they're playing from behind a lot, so you're going to throw the ball.
Sure.
His touchdown interception rate is almost 2-1. So like, and again, you're playing in a bad team with a bad offensive line, no running game. For the last handful of seasons, you haven't had the best receiver of his generation. So, but still only one receiver.
And keep in mind, our argument here is not that Matt Stafford is the best quarterback in the NFL.
Absolutely.
Or even challenging for a best all time. So the slot there. We're just making the argument that he's better than because people, the way it comes up, people are critiquing this trade. Like, the upgrade from Goff to Stafford isn't that big, and that they gave up way too much. Did they give up more? I guess, but we overpay quarterbacks in dollars.
Right.
It's not like the Rams
draft picks.
The Rams don't have a ton of holes. Draft picks are still a gamble. And if you think you have the tools to win and you want that quarterback now, it sounds like they weren't willing to compete or pay or afford a Deshaun Watson, obviously. So why not go for a guy at the tail end of his career trying to prove something?
And let's be honest, too. You can get draft picks back later on. I mean, you can even – and
they have a lot of young talent and older talent.
And we see – later. Yeah, and we see trades that involve just picks from time to time. So, yeah, they don't have a first rounder, but you may be able to move, a fourth rounder, a third and fourth rounder, or a third and fifth rounder and get a second round pick or something
like
that. Like, draft.
Not to mention the cockiness of like a McVay-esque coach, the coach that has like the system that they believe in, and they already have a lot of the pieces in place. He has a lot of faith in being able to find diamonds in the rough. Those kind of coaches are like, I know what type of – it's like a Belichick. Belichick's never had – what was the highest draft pick before this year that Bill Belichick had? I guess it would be the year he took over. Because, I mean, ever since he hasn't – I mean, has he had a season bad enough to draft in the top 15?
I mean, he will next year.
Well, yeah, I said up until
but otherwise, no. I mean,
they're a system team. They're a team that, like, we know what we want. We have this kind of player, and we'll find them in whatever round we draft in. You can find talent wherever you want.
Yeah,
you just got to be good at it.
They made the playoffs forever. And Scotty says that Stafford will get run through the mud with the LA media if he doesn't succeed. Well, he only has 2 years left on his contract. So,
and he's already used to not playing in front of fans. So,
right, exactly.
That's something.
And let's be honest, there won't be a full stadium in LA next year if there's fans, period.
Actually, I guess the difference is in Detroit, no matter how bad they are, people still show up.
Right. And
what else is there to do in Detroit?
And LA, this year they probably won't be allowed to.
Poor Jared Goff. Boy, I didn't even think of that. Having to go from Los Angeles to Detroit.
Like a city that doesn't totally care about football. But to caring about it all the time. Yeah, no Thanksgiving game for Stafford unless the Rams play in it. I think he'll be fine with that.
I think he's okay with
that.
Yeah,
I think he'll survive. But again, he has 2 years.
Actually play on Sunday night now.
Yeah, he has 2 years left on his contract. He has 2 years left on his contract. So I don't think there's going to be an opportunity for him to quote unquote get run through the mud. I mean, granted, if they, really fall on their face this year, that'd be one thing. But I also don't see that happening. Again, that team.
I don't see anything happening from a Stafford's, Stafford's shoulders. Like if they fail, you're going to see them fail elsewhere. Maybe it's injuries. Maybe it's, the system not working. Maybe it's just the harder schedule. Who knows? But I don't think you're going to be able to look at anything that goes wrong with the Rams, if anything, and go, that's Matt Stafford's fault.
Yeah. Absolutely not.
No more than you could with Goff.
Right. It's an upgrade for the Rams at the quarterback position. It's an upgrade in future stock for the Detroit Lions. I think both teams won, like I said, for different ways. I think it gives the Rams the opportunity, to put themselves in a position to win and to win now. And they did not have that opportunity with Jared Goff under center. And to me that's the mark of winning a trade. Like if you're not going to be in the market for Deshaun Watson, and I it's probably obvious that they weren't willing to pay the price. then this
Would have been
is
ironic if they'd have tried to trade for Carson Wentz.
yes, yeah, it probably would have been. But yeah, it's a good deal. Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?